a young man discovers a photo on his phone that reveals a secret he was not prepared to know. Now imagine yourself in his place. A regular night, you're scrolling through the day's photos and suddenly you find something that shouldn't be there. An image that not only challenges what you believe, but also brings a revealing suspense, as if someone or something is trying to communicate in an enigmatic way. The adrenaline rushes, your heart races, and you realize that your life will never be the same. This is the story of Lucas, a 19-year-old who found something on his phone that no one could have predicted. Among routine images from a party, a frightening photo appeared, taken from an impossible angle. In the reflection, a detail that changed everything, a hidden secret that opened doors to a mystery and suspense so deep it left him shaken. What he discovered that night was more than just a coincidence. It was a shocking revelation that connected him to a past he was trying to forget and a future he never imagined facing. In this video, you will learn every detail of this surprising story. You will follow Lucas from the moment he noticed the mysterious photo to the moment he confronted the astonishing enigma and uncovered an unexpected and disturbing truth. And who knows, by the end of this video, you might realize that something similar has happened to you, but it was hidden, waiting to be revealed. At first glance, Lucas was just a typical young man. At 19, his routine revolved around college, friends, and social media. He loved capturing every important moment with his phone, reflecting his generation. That specific night he was coming back from a lively party, full of laughter and stories to tell. He took several photos with friends, capturing everything from relaxed moments to selfies that would be posted the next day. It was just another night to store in his phone's gallery. Or at least, that's what he thought. The next day, Lucas began reviewing the party photos while having breakfast. He laughed at some funny expressions from his friends, deleted the blurry images, and selected the best ones to post. But in the midst of this seemingly mundane activity, his eyes stopped on an image that made no sense. The photo showed something he was sure he hadn't taken. It was an image of him sleeping in his room. A chill ran down his spine. After all, how did that photo end up there? He was alone that night. That was a fact. What made everything even more disturbing was the feeling that the photo didn't seem to be just a mistake or a lost file. It had something dark about it, as if it carried a purpose. Lucas tried to convince himself that it could be a bad joke or some digital trick done by a friend, but the more he stared at the image, the more questions arose. Who took this photo? When was it taken? And, most unsettling, why? His heart began to race as he stared at the screen, as if the answer could appear right there. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Lucas decided to investigate. He began to retrace the events of the previous night, analyzing the possibilities. He thought about the friends who had access to his phone, and the chance that someone had tampered with it without his permission. He revisited his messages and even checked the activity history on the device. But even with all these efforts, the question kept hammering in his mind. Who was behind that mysterious photo? With each frustrated attempt to find answers, the enigma seemed to grow denser, opening up to a mystery that would consume him completely. The image seemed ordinary at first glance, but something about it sent an inexplicable shiver down Lucas's spine. In the photo, he was lying on his bed, eyes closed, as if he were sleeping deeply. The soft lighting of the room and the angle of the photo gave the impression that it was taken by someone close, very close. However, Lucas knew he was alone that night. The question that hammered in his mind was, who could have taken that photo? He looked around the room as if the answer could be hidden there, but everything seemed exactly as it had before. Determined to find an explanation, Lucas began asking friends who had been with him at the party. He called each one, sent messages, and described the situation. Everyone responded with surprise, claiming they hadn't touched his phone. Some even laughed, thinking it was a joke. But Lucas wasn't convinced. He knew he hadn't lent his phone that night, and even stranger, the photo had been taken inside his room, long after he returned home. This ruled out any possibility of a friend being responsible. In an attempt to find a logical answer, he checked the security cameras in his building. He sifted through hours of footage to see if anyone had entered his apartment. The result? Nothing. The images showed Lucas entering alone and closing the door, with no signs of a break-in. Even so, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The mystery on his phone seemed to grow with each step, as if the truth itself was trying to escape. The frightening photo remained there, a surprising enigma that refused to be solved. Lucas decided to take a closer look. He zoomed in on the photo, analyzing every detail for something that could give him a clue. It was then that he noticed something that had gone unnoticed. In the reflection of the mirror in the background, there was a vague figure, almost invisible. It seemed to be a human silhouette, but the lines were distorted, like a shadow in motion. He blinked several times, trying to convince himself it was just a light effect or a camera error. However, the more he looked, the more that detail seemed charged with something beyond common explanation. The feeling of revealing suspense was now almost unbearable. In search of answers, Lucas began to dig deeper into his phone's history. That's when he found something even stranger. A message sent to an unknown number on the same night the photo was taken. The content was a sequence of nonsensical words, as if someone had typed in his place. He tried calling the number, but the call wouldn't go through. The lights in the room began to flicker as he insisted on the call, and the device inexplicably shut off by itself. Now, the mystery seemed to have a life of its own, surrounding Lucas in a suspense that only intensified. Lucas could hardly get the photo out of his mind. That figure in the mirror was more than just a coincidence. Determined to uncover the truth, he zoomed in on the image again and noticed something that made him freeze. The face in the reflection looked familiar, but he couldn't identify from where. It was as if a buried memory was trying to emerge, but remained out of reach. This left him uneasy because it wasn't just an unknown figure. It was someone who, in some way, was part of his story. The mystery was no longer just about the photo, but about who or what was trying to communicate with him. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Lucas began connecting the dots. He remembered a car accident he witnessed years ago when he was still a teenager. At the time, he didn't know the victims, but one of the faces seemed vaguely familiar to him, resembling the reflection in the photo. Intrigued, he searched for old news about the accident and found images of the event. That's when he was sure. The face in the reflection belonged to one of the people who lost their lives in that tragic event. The shocking revelation opened a new chapter in the mystery, leaving Lucas torn between fear and curiosity. Determined to seek answers, Lucas rummaged through his phone's message history once more. He found a strange pattern. All the messages sent to the unknown number contained references to specific dates and locations. Upon investigating these locations, he discovered they were related to his childhood, such as the elementary school he attended and the house where he lived with his parents. Each clue seemed to lead to another, as if he were being guided toward a greater secret, and all the while, the figure in the reflection became increasingly present in his thoughts, as if it were trying to pull him toward something he could not ignore. Tension escalated when Lucas received an unexpected call from the same number he had been trying to contact. The voice on the other end was almost inaudible, with a grave and distorted tone. "You already know who I am," said the voice before the call was interrupted. Lucas felt his blood run cold. Who was that person? And how did they know so much about him? More than ever, he was convinced that this story was not just a mystery on his phone, but a deep connection to something he had forgotten, or perhaps something he should never have known. Finally, Lucas decided to confront his fear head-on. He returned to the site of the accident, believing he would find answers there. Upon arrival, he found worn marks on the asphalt, and a sense of déjà vu washed over him. It was then that he noticed something strange. On one of the poles, there was a handwritten message that seemed to be addressed to him. "Look closer," the message read. As he searched the area, he found an old keychain he recognized as his, one he had lost years before. It was as if all the pieces were being carefully aligned, and Lucas knew that the next discovery would be the most revealing, or the most frightening. The night was dark and silent when Lucas finally arrived home with the keychain in hand. He examined it closely, trying to understand why that lost object had reappeared at such a strange moment. It was then that an old memory, long blocked, resurfaced. Years ago, he had been present at the site of the accident, but not just as a bystander. He remembered being in the car as a passenger and being saved by a man who sacrificed his life to save him. The face in the reflection was that of this man, the same one who rescued him that fateful night. The shocking revelation shook Lucas deeply, mixing gratitude with an inexplicable fear. As he tried to process this unexpected truth, Lucas decided to look at the photo on his phone one last time. He zoomed in on the reflection in the mirror and noticed something even more terrifying. The face of the man was not just looking at him. The reflection was smiling enigmatically, and beneath it, in the shadow projected on the wall, there were letters forming a phrase. "It's not too late." Lucas felt his heart race. What did that mean? The phrase seemed like a warning, but also a call to action. He then realized that the man wasn't trying to haunt him. He was trying to protect him, warning him about something imminent that Lucas still didn't understand. With a mix of courage and desperation, Lucas returned to investigate his messages on his phone. He found a sequence of numbers that seemed to be coordinates. Upon checking them, he discovered they pointed to a nearby location, the same road where the accident happened years ago. Something or someone was trying to guide him there. He knew he had to confront this surprising enigma head-on, even if it meant facing his greatest fears. What awaited him at that location was still a mystery, but one thing was clear. The mysterious photo was not just a coincidence. It carried a secret that would change his life forever. Lucas followed the coordinates, and upon arriving at the accident site, found something that seemed to be waiting for him. A small box buried in the ground, marked with the same symbol he had seen in the photo. With trembling hands, he opened the box and found a note alongside a familiar object, a watch that belonged to the man who saved him in the past. The note contained a short but powerful message. "You have the chance to change destiny." At that moment, Lucas understood that the warning in the photo was about something much bigger than he could imagine. He was not just revisiting a traumatic past. He was being called to act, to prevent another tragedy from happening. The watch marked a specific time, and he knew that time was of the essence. Back in his room, Lucas looked at his phone once more, but now with a new perspective. The frightening photo, the mysterious reflection, and the surprising enigma were not coincidences. They formed a puzzle with a clear message. He was part of something much larger, something that transcended his understanding. The figure in the mirror, which he initially feared, was not a threat, but a wiser and more determined version of himself, guiding him toward a future that could still be written. The story ended with Lucas facing the camera of his phone, determined to make the right choice, as the watch on the table marked the final minutes before the decisive moment. Now the question that remains is, would you do the same if you were in his place?